Welcome, friends. Episode 28 of the Nope Coach podcast. I'm your host, Suzanne Kohlberg, joined once again by Shannon Ivey. And today we are talking about what's in a name. Is that from Shakespeare? I'm pretty sure. A rose by any other name would smell as sweet. If you're Shakespearean or thinking it's going to be something about literature, you're on the wrong show. I was going to say literature was my least favorite subject at school, followed by geography. Anywho, what's in a name? The reason I think this is such an excellent topic is many of us in the coaching world or the healing world or the entrepreneurial world get tripped up with what do we call ourselves? Because there are connotations with certain names. There are cultural significance. There are, like, it's so funny. It wasn't that long ago. If you said, hey, I'm a coach, people would assume that you ran a sports team. It hasn't been until recently. And people would say life coach, or what does that mean? But there's so many jobs or things that are clear cut. Like my husband's an engineer. So people would be like, oh, okay. Or what type, electrical, mechanical, or civil? Or then they might now go aeronautical or computer or whatever, but they have an idea. But when you are entrepreneurial into coaching, healing, guiding, like, what do I call myself? And that's why I invited Shannon on today, because you are the midwife. And I remember when we first met, you were like, what do you think that means? Like before I knew any more. And I was like, oh, I thought it was a cool name and it's got a nice ring to it. But yeah, tell us about the evolution of your name for what you do, Shannon.
Well, first I should tell you that in my high school, there were 6 Shannons, 6 of us in a class of 100.
Were you all female women identifying? Because Shannon here is also oh, wow.
I've only ever met, now I've met 2 male Shannons. But otherwise there were six female, born as female Shannons in my Christian high school. And then we had nicknames, right? And some of them were not so. There was a scary Shannon. There was like
the Spice Girls, the Shannon girls, scary Shannon.
Yes, I was not sporty Shannon. I was, who knows what I was behind my back, but I was like fine arts Shannon because I was in all of the fine arts. But there was another Shannon who was in 2 fine arts, not 3. Did she do theater too? Anyway, so they called her like flute Shannon, but I was fine arts Shannon. I mean, like, what? But I've had this issue, and in the divorce, technically, if you look me up, Shannon, I'm Shannon-Ivey.com. I lost Shannonivey.com in my divorce. So I have a whole thing about my name.
Oh,
yes,
wow.
Forever I have a dash. I know, because I'm married and divorced a web developer. But I do think that names and what you call yourself, I think it's both important and not at all.
Oh, 100%. And it's interesting. What came to mind when you were talking? I don't know if my mum's found my podcast yet. I know my sister has, so, overshare, but this is what I do. I love my mum fiercely, and it's so funny because she tells me off for how much I swear. And I'm like, where do you think I got it from? But I'm one of 4. We're all daughters, and she calls us her 4 bitches. So there's the bossy bitch, the moody bitch. I can't remember what the other 2 are. But I just find that funny because when you said the Shannons, and one of my sisters got totally irate by this. She was like, oh my goodness, oh! And I just thought it was hilarious. But, when you think about it.
Which one were you?
What do you reckon?
I don't know. Which one were you?
Moody. I'll own it. I'm very moody, people. But when we think about it, what we are referred to as, what we are called, our name, our title, is our biggest anchor, because it's how we connect to the world. And so my name is Suzanne. My mother's name is also Suzanne, because that's a whole story. I'm the youngest of these 4 sisters. So when she was coming up with names, when she was pregnant, no, you can't call her that. I know someone at school and she's horrible. I don't want my sister being called that. It was a whole drama. So in the end, my mum was like, if it's a girl, it's after me. If it's a boy, it's after your father. End of story. So my mum is known as Sue. and I'm Suzanne, so it's less confusing. I don't actually answer or respond to anything else other than Suzanne or Suze, which Shannon and I have had a whole conversation about before from friends or people I know. But when I was growing up, I had this teacher, she used to call me Susan. And I corrected her. I said, no, my name is Suzanne. And she's like, well, I'm just going to call you Susan. I was like, well, I'm just not going to answer. And she rang my mum and called her in for an interview. And my mum worked, so she had to take time off to come in for this. And she's like, oh, so why are you here, Mrs. Randall? And she's like, because you called me in. So my mum's already starting to get a bit annoyed by this stage. And she's like, oh, yes, that's right, Susan, and she told her the story. And my mum's like, I 100% support my daughter. I'm not pulling her up on that. That's her name. And I just think so often we don't advocate for ourselves, and we, people give us a nickname that we, and we just take it on. It's like, no, our name. And then maybe that's why so many of us get hung up on this in our coaching business or in our entrepreneur or in our life. Like, what is my title? Because we have big anchoring to it. And then, as you said, on one part, it doesn't really matter. Oh, I work with her. What does she do? Well, yeah. But on the other part, it's a big part of your identity or your concept as what you do to want to get it right, for lack of a better way of putting it.
What makes it really confusing in my practice is that each of my clients calls me something different. So right now I have a lot of entrepreneurial women clients. They may not think of themselves as entrepreneurs, but that's what we're working on. I know what it is. And they might call me their business coach. I have a client who calls me her book coach. I have clients who call me all sorts of things, life coaches, etc. So what am I trained in? Life coaching. But what does my background bring in? Creativity coaching. Like, what is your expertise? You have this sort of flavor to what you can offer folks. It does sort of influence who comes to you. But what I just thought, what I say right now to someone, hi, I'm Shannon Ivey, and I'm a business coach. Like, I feel like I might need to be different. And yet people call me that. Isn't that fascinating?
Well, that is interesting. So what comes to mind is two things. So I know this lawyer, Michelle Whitehead, she's in Australia. Anyone Australian listening, look her up. She's fabulous. Her backdrop, her branding is fairies and dragons, and it's absolutely amazing. And she's like, I'm your lawyer in the woods. And sometimes people would associate the title, the name of lawyer, with business suit and very Suzanne can't even say the word professional, and but it's like you can take the title and the name and make it your own. If people have connotations with it, that's up to them. So she deliberately has on her business card and her branding all the woods and the dragons and the castles. So if you looked at that and was like, whoa, this isn't for me, it's a great filter to be able to hold on to your name. And there's another lady I was listening to just recently, and she refers to herself as a shaman. And someone said to her offhandedly, well, I've never seen a shaman with a Gucci bag, like, because they associate the phrase shaman with free or with community or with whatever. So it's kind of like, if you want to pick a cultural term, or something that's got associations with it, like, lawyer or shaman, you get to choose whether you continue with that. And someone else said to her, why don't you just call yourself a mystic? She's like, well, I could do that. So if you're not sure on the name, try it out, see the response that you get, see how it feels in your body. Like, and if you want to keep going with that, or if you want to tweak.
Oh, I love it. And I also love taking something and upending it, because that catches someone's attention. Do you know? Like something that has certain connotations and then flipping it around, or like having like two disparate things together. I don't know. I just like, people.
Have you heard of Tad Hargrave? His business is marketing for hippies. I love it. He's done exactly that. Marketing, but for hippies. And I remember one time I was toying, before I came up with Nope Coach, I was toying with the empathetic bitch, because I have a lot of empathy, but I'm also a bitch. So it's kind of like taking two things that seem at odds and bringing them together to encapsulate the totality of you.
Even in the mastermind where you and I met, it has the word bitch in the title. And I've known this particular coach for years. And because I have like this strange, like I don't like that word bitch, I still have some weird pull about it. It took me forever to think I would want to be in that group of people. Isn't that fascinating?
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's also, it's kind of, it's trying it on. It's seeing, does it work for you? It's seeing, does it resonate with the right kind of audience too, the kind of clientele that you are wanting to work with. So I used to coach for a company, like as a subcontractor, and their brand was very high end. They were very good, particular, and they wouldn't put me on their website as listed as one of their coaches because I don't have any pictures of my hair and makeup done. It's like, this is how I am. And I remember us having a discussion about it because I was like, I don't want to misrepresent. This is how I turn up on calls. So this is how I am. And if I put on one image, so then when I started my own business and I had my first, maybe it was second, I've had many iterations of my website. I hired a photographer. I got professional photos taken. I wore a dress. I wore makeup, or as much makeup as I'd wear, a bit lippy, And I remember my clients going, but that's not you. We love the mum bun and the ridiculous shirts and whatever. Like, that's what, if I came across this and I didn't know you, I'd be like, ugh, no. So I think sometimes we try with our title and our name and make it sound something else or make it professional or make it, but it's not actually appealing to the people that we want to call in.
And I love the discovery process. Like I've been shifting my understanding of myself over the last few years, and the hair is changing with it. And even now I was in my closet and some of the clothes that I have for summer, because it's summer in spring, it's getting hot in South Carolina. Some of the more feminine clothes don't match who I am. Some still are okay, but I'm like cleaning it out, right? I'm moving things out of my closet that were for a different me. That was last year's me.
What does your shirt say, by the way? I've been meaning to ask you. The full, I can see feminism.
Feminism is for everybody.
I love that. But it's kind of like it's claiming you. And I think sometimes the name comes along the way. So I recently rebranded as the Nope Coach. I've had a lot of titles before then. And how it actually came to be was when I was dropping the weight anchor, no pun intended, I used to be a weight loss coach, weight loss mindset coach. And even that, I had so much drama with it because if anyone listening, I did a whole episode on word allergies. And one of them for me is weight loss. But I had to put that in my title because people don't go searching up weight release. So that was a whole conundrum I was in. But anyway, when I was rebranding to more about boundaries and stuff, the person I was working with was like, oh, I see you as like a yay sayer. And I was like, excuse me? And they're like, a yay sayer is in, getting on board or whatever. And I'm like, nope. I don't resonate with that in any way, shape, or form. And from that moment, Nope Coach was born. I was like, that's what I stand for. But in saying no, then you get a clear yes. By saying no to others, then you can say yes to yourself. So I could see where the yay sayer thing came from. So for anyone listening, if you are an entrepreneur, if you're struggling with this, like, what should I call myself? Don't put so much pressure onto how to get it right today. It will evolve as you evolve. Like, you might look back. If you don't have secondhand embarrassment looking back at some of your old stuff, have you even really been doing it? And like your clothing, your style, your hair evolves, what you call yourself will evolve. So Shannon, you said you had something you wanted to tell me in this episode about your name. So I forgot to ask. I'm here.
Yes. Okay. So I went by this, like what she said, project forever. My LLC is Gather SC LLC. It has nothing to do with anything I'm doing now. So I have this very generic coaching name, and I thought about being the coaching space. Okay. So I collect purses and domain names that are really good ideas. I do a little research at night. I used to be in bars and now I buy domain names. And for $14, it's mine. I was just looking at all of my domain names.
Cocktail, a domain name. Oh, that is the best.
So many. I need to get rid of some because they just keep now charging me. But I've been thinking about, I've just been thinking about being more clear about, like, am I I don't know. Coaching is what I do. I know who I'm coaching for, but the name doesn't match. And so I'm just thinking that through.
I love it. So where can people find you, Shannon Ivey?
Shannon Ivey. They can find me by Google searching Shannon, ShannonIvey. They can put in shannon-ivey.com and they'll find me on Facebook, Instagram, and my podcast is called the What She Said Project.
Thank you so much for joining me. Yes, all the things. Go lovingly stalk Shannon in all the places. And I'll catch you on the next one. Thank you for listening. Bye for now.